If you grew up in the 90s, the name Nas takes you back to a time when Illmatic hit the streets, when Jay-Z got ethered, and when Sincere killed Black in the 1998 hip-hop classic film Belly. You know him for hard rhymes and a soft voice, a poetic flow, and melodic stories that could resonate with anybody who grew up in the inner city. He was the voice of Queens, New York, a solidified legend in both underground and mainstream hip-hop. For over a decade, he dropped new albums every 2 or 3 years. And then somewhere around 2012, the albums started coming out a bit slower. And as music shifted from CDs to streaming, he seemed to fall back a bit publicly and shy away from the main stage. But while many rappers blow through their fortunes shortly after passing their musical prime, Nas managed to amass a net worth of a reported $100 million. And how did he do it? Well, he did it through strategic and well-placed investments. And when I say investments, I'm not talking about starting a fried chicken restaurant like Flavor Flav or investing in some silly unbreakable glasses like Ray J. I'm talking about major early investments into some of today's most groundbreaking, industry-shifting, and world-changing brands. In this video, we're gonna discuss exactly how Nas transitioned from being one of the world's greatest rappers to one of his greatest tech investors. Nasir Jones, better known as Nas, was born in 1973 to jazz musician Olu Dara. He spent his childhood and teenage years growing up in the infamous Queensbridge houses, which is a 96-building development known as the largest public housing project complex in America. Growing up in Queensbridge usually wasn't an easy life for residents. During the peak of the crack epidemic in 1986, when Nas would have only been 13 years old, Queensbridge had more murders than any other project complex in New York City. It was known back then, and still is known today, as an epicenter of drug dealing, violence, and crime. In 2005, for instance, a police investigation of Queensbridge led to the arrest of 37 people in a single drug bust. In 2019, another raid resulted in 59 arrests. However, for a place with such a heinous reputation, Queensbridge produced many notable musicians, rappers, and producers, from Marley Marl and MC Shan to Mobb Deep and Cormega. Okay, back to the story. Even as a young student, Nas showcased a high proficiency in writing. Yet despite his obvious ability to excel with the pen, he dropped out of school in only 8th grade. It wasn't long before his love of writing stories transitioned into penning rap lyrics, mostly focused on his life growing up in Queensbridge. As a young rapper, he collaborated with Willie Ill Will Graham, who would perform as a DJ while Nas rapped, building a foundation for what would soon become a legendary music career. In 1991, he debuted to the public as Nasty Nas, spitting a feature verse on Live at the Barbecue by Main Source. The song was produced by Large Professor, who would go on to produce Nas's early demos and some of his most impactful songs. Over the next few years, he'd release only a few songs as he honed in on his musical geniusness. In 1994, he released the legendary album Illmatic, which instantly rose on the pop and R&B Billboard charts. The Illmatic album was produced by some of the greatest producers of the time, like Q-Tip, Pete Rock, DJ Premier, and Large Professor. His storytelling, smooth voice, and intricate cadences changed the sound of the street, and Illmatic would go on to become one of the most renowned albums in hip-hop history. Over the next 10 years, he'd cement himself as a top talent in the hip-hop industry, releasing more legendary albums like It Was Written and Stillmatic, and entering into a full-fledged rap beef with Jay-Z, where 2 of the greatest diss tracks, Ether and Takeover, would hit the airwaves. From 2002 to 2008, he'd released several more albums like Godson, Street Disciple, Hip Hop Is Dead, and Untitled. In 2010, he released Distant Relatives, a collaboration album with Damian Marley. And in 2012, he released Life Is Good, which was nominated for a Grammy. Although he made a few albums since then, none of them would really generate the type of traction that his previous albums did. And several years would pass between the release of each subsequent album. And ultimately, 2012 would end Nas's reliance on rap as his main source of income. This is usually the point where most rappers fall off the map, spend all their money, make bad investments, try to maintain their lifestyles with a fraction of the income, and basically go broke. But even if Nas seemed to be done with hip-hop, hip-hop obviously wasn't done with Nas. Because while he met thousands of people as an artist, there was one unexpected introduction to a fan that would change the course of his life. But that fan, a self-proclaimed hip-hop head, wasn't just another groupie hoping for a meet and greet. His name was Ben Horowitz, and he was growing as one of the most successful startup investors in the world. Born in London, Ben Horowitz began his career at Silicon Graphics in 1990, then joined Marc Andreessen as a product manager at Netscape in 1995. Later in his career, he served as a vice president of AOL's e-commerce division. Fast forward to 2009, Ben Horowitz and Marc Andreessen founded Andreessen Horowitz to invest in fast growth tech companies, and they grew a $300 million fund into $2.7 billion. Now certainly Ben Horowitz wasn't your typical rap fan, but a chance encounter put the two of them on the same page and changed both of their lives drastically. It all started when Henry Louis Gates Jr., a literary critic, professor, and filmmaker, called Ben and complained that he couldn't get a hip-hop artist on his TV show. Horowitz then reached out to his friend Steve Stout, a popular advertising and music industry entrepreneur, who put him in touch with Nas. And while on set for that TV show, Nas and Ben struck up a conversation, and a bromance grew based on their shared passion for music and their shared passion for tech. This introduction may have happened by chance, but maybe it was fate based on how Nas was already positioning himself. In an interview with CNBC, Nas said, "I've always wanted to surround myself by the smartest people in the world, and didn't want to limit that to just music." In other words, he may not have planned to meet Ben Horowitz, but he fully expected to meet the likes of Ben Horowitz. And with advisement from Ben Horowitz, Nas started his own venture capital firm in 2013 alongside his partner Anthony Saleh, a successful music manager, entrepreneur, and investor. As an ode to where he grew up, he called it Queensbridge Venture Partners. And unlike many investors who jump into the game investing in every half-assed business plan that crosses their desk, Nas decided to take it slow and learn as he went along. In the beginning, he relied on guidance from Ben Horowitz, who would scout deals for the team and use his influence to help them land those deals. This guidance helped them build a strong foundation, which would launch Queensbridge Venture Partners forward as a tech investing giant with investments in more than 40 fast growth tech companies. And by leveraging Ben Horowitz's experiences, Queensbridge Venture Partners was able to avoid many of the challenges that new investors face and create huge wins that will far outweigh any failed investments. And just to be clear here, Queensbridge's portfolio was downright incredible. We're talking about investments in some of today's most advanced technologies, startups that earn billions of dollars with several acquisitions that earn Nas upwards of $100 million. So let's look at some of the companies in his portfolio. And unless you've been living in the cave, I'm sure that these names will ring a few bells. And speaking of ringing bells, let's start there. Queensbridge Venture Partners was an early partner in Ring, which completely redefined the doorbell and security markets. Having sold over 1.4 million units in 2020 alone, Ring sold almost as many doorbells as Skybell, Nest, Vivint, and Remo combined. After becoming the driving brand in the video doorbell sector, Ring's founder Jamie Siminoff sold Ring to Amazon for more than $1 billion, netting Nas's investment firm a reported $40 million. And just like that, it was written. The firm also invested in Dropbox's Series C fundraising round. As of 2022, Dropbox has more than 700 million registered users and 15.5 million paying subscribers. Now, Dropbox is a publicly traded company with an $8.8 billion market capitalization. By 2024, Dropbox expects to hit $1 billion in free cash flow. Now that will make a street disciple scream hallelujah and amen. PillPack proved to be another super successful investment for Nas and his firm. PillPack is a full-service online pharmacy that packages your medication and delivers it right to your doorstep. Queensbridge participated in an initial investment round that helped raise $8.8 million for the startup company. PillPack became the second startup in the firm's portfolio to be acquired by Amazon. In 2018, Amazon purchased PillPack for an estimated $753 million. And if the Ring acquisition wasn't Illmatic, Nas proved that with this one, he's still Matic. With a new understanding of successful investment, it's really no surprise that Nas decided to invest in the emerging stock trading platform Robinhood. At the time that Nas's firm invested, Robinhood was valued at around $62 million. By 2021, the company was worth $32 billion, and that was around the time that it went public. And with that, I'm pretty sure that Nas could have just kicked his feet back for the rest of his life like, hey, life is good. But he didn't, because he also invested in another company that proved his foresight and his ability to invest at the perfect time. In 2013, he invested in Coinbase. At the time, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies were really still viewed as an underground concept. The crypto craze hadn't yet begun, and Coinbase was already positioning itself as a first mover in the crypto trading platform space. Nas's firm invested in Coinbase's Series B round, investing somewhere between $100,000 and $500,000 of the total $25 million that they raised. Coinbase went public in 2021 with a value of $99.6 billion. It's estimated that Nas's stake was worth at least $40 million. And if it wasn't obvious before, this move proved that he had the magic touch when it came to investing in startups. Look, Nas has invested in over 100 startups, so I'm not gonna go through all of them, but there are some other really big names in his portfolio too. Lyft, Casper Mattress, SeatGeek, Parachute, and the list goes on. Nas is still one of the greatest rappers of my generation, but it's his eye for choosing the right investments that has transitioned him from rich to ultra wealthy. Before we wrap this up, there's a quote from Nas that I think would be helpful for you as a startup as you're seeking to partner with high-level angel investors and venture capitalists. When asked the most important factor he considers while investing, he said, people. That is the absolute number one. I love to bet on great people that inspire me and make me think or see things differently. A big part of that has to do with the management team, which makes a huge difference in the kinds of companies that will stick out to me. In other words, if you want to stand out to an investor like Nas, first focus on building the right team, a team with experience, commitment, knowledge, and vision. And if you haven't built your team yet, well, here's a video that will explain exactly what team members you need and how to find them. If you enjoyed this content, leave a like and subscribe down below because we post a new video every week to help you grow your startup exponentially. I hope this video motivated you, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care and keep creating amazing